Alrighty, hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm excited to share a bit about my project titled An Interpretive History of the Lower Deep River Region, North Carolina, that explores how digital humanities resources can be used to reconstruct the past and inform conservation efforts in the future. In 2007, the North Carolina General Assembly approved the Deep River State Trail, a new unit in the State Park Service that it's created with the intention of preserving the Deep River and conserving the Deep River due to its vast biological and recreational resources and opportunities. Designed to start in Guilford County and concluding in lower Chatham and Lee counties at the headwaters of the Cape Fear River. This trail is vast, it's big, and there's a lot of history here. And so it's my hope that by diving into one section of this river, we get a better sense of why history should be a founding reason for conservation in this area, how its history informs its future and really shapes what's to come. By focusing in on this one little community stretch about 30 miles long in the lower section of Chatham and northern section of Lee counties, North Carolina, I also get to return home. This is a public history project where I get to work with community members that I grew up hearing stories from. And so the chance to return home and engage with the people that made this area, added it to the map, is something that's really special and allows the information to jump off the page. This area has some really amazing parks already established that are used for recreation and biological resources. But it's my hope to stress that these areas are also vast in their historical opportunities. This includes on the upper left-hand side of the screen, the Camelback Truss Bridge added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1995. It's now a gateway to the Deep River. There is a launch site. On any given weekend, you'll see tubers or paddlers or anglers enjoying all that the Deep River has to offer. In the lower right-hand side of the screen, we have the Carbonton Powerhouse, a part of the company formerly known as the Sand Hills Power Company, built in 1921, and it actually brought light to this tri-county area. Thinking about these historic resources and how the current parks are built around them really segues into what historical conservation looks like. So as I mentioned earlier, we're focusing on this lower section of the Deep River, looking at Lee, Chatham, and Moore counties, last 30-mile stretches. And when I started this project, I thought it would be helpful to actually map out the resources and get a sense of what existed here in the past. And all of a sudden, when you pull these historic informations together, you see the remnants of historic communities that no longer exist, mine and industrial sites that are lost to the past. When overlaying this with public lands, and that's what the polygons on the screen are, you get a sense that many of these publicly accessible sites are built around history, even if they don't necessarily realize it. So zooming into the center part of the map, this little community of Cumnock, really sits at a crossroads of what was, what is, and what's to come. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have the site of the Camelback Truss Bridge that I previously mentioned, and it's an established park that people are able to use and do use on a regular basis. We also have the newly conserved land surrounding the indoor iron furnace, 300 acres of land that have been added to the State Historic Sites program that will protect the indoor iron furnace and 19th century Confederate iron furnace, but also allow individuals to recreate in the space and engage with all of those resources that exist in a meaningful recreational way. We also have two coal mines that are a part of the larger Deep River coal field, the Egypt coal mine and the Farmville coal mine. These two coal mines are two of the only commercially profitable coal mines that occurred in the state of North Carolina. They really represent what industry in the central part of the state looked like. They're also the sites of some of our deadliest industrial disasters in the state. There's very little interpretive information around, and part of that comes from the fact that much of their history is hidden below the earth and people aren't able to see it. So taking these maps and using some historical resources, I think it's helpful to bring these materials to life. This might look like using historic maps of the mines, like on the left-hand side of the screen and on the bottom right, that allow us to situate the mine both in the context of the greater coal field or what the mine looks like in terms of its underground footprint. And in the top right-hand side of the screen, we also have an image, drawn on December 21st, 1895, that outlined where the 1895 Egypt coal mine explosion occurred, and information about where the miners who passed in the accident were at the time of the explosion. So taking these resources together, we're able to build an image of what the coal field and the proximate mines looked like. On the screen in front of us, this is information of the extent of the Deep River coal field. And when we zoom into the community of Cumnock, we can actually overlay the outline of the mine with the information we have about the coal field and understand that the mine occurred here not by accident, but by choice. It sits at the thickest band of the Deep River coal field, which ups the chances of mining a profitable amount of coal. We can also use those historic resources like information found in the newspaper to reconstruct the past and understand where these explosions occurred and how that might have impacted who died, when, and how. We can also use information from newspapers, like in the bottom right, to learn about accidents that occurred outside of these bigger explosions, like the 1928 accident that killed 4 imprisoned laborers under the state's purview of convict leasing. Piecing all of this together in a two-dimensional way allows us to see it as a, if you will, as a 30,000-foot overview, but the world doesn't exist in a 3D, doesn't exist only in 2D, it exists in a 3D way. And so taking it a step further, I was able to transpose those resources and actually create a 3D model of the mines to understand how those 2 mines in particular fared in the Deep River coal field, particularly in the context of the rest of the field. And so zooming out, we get a sense of this 30-mile long, 2,000-foot deep coal field, and really that tiny blueprint that one area right here in the central part of the field had in the greater scheme of things. We can also use this to imagine what the mines looked like on a very specific and granular scale. So zooming in, we start at the coal shaft and get an overview of how this mine actually fared underground from depths of about 200 feet below ground to anywhere between 800 and 900 feet below ground. Steeper slopes, a sense that this is not necessarily a place that many people would want to work or be, because it is dark, it is underground, it is cramped, and in a way, the deeper and deeper you go, the harder it is to get out. But visualizing these resources allows folks to take a step into the past and see what they could have never done so otherwise. And that brings me to an important part of this project, the deepriverhistory.com project, noted as an interpretive history of the lower Deep River region, because I believe it's important to get individuals who are either interested in learning more about the past below their feet or even the specifics of the lower Deep River region, the chance to engage with this material in their own time and in their own way. So doing so, they're able to visualize these moments in time and learn about everything that there is to offer without having to travel anywhere outside of their home. They can learn more about the scientific and the granular details of the coal mining heritage, or actually learn about the coal miners that did pass in the mine. With over 130 men killed during its 150-year tenure, the Deep River coal mine has a deadly history. And so this work in progress website allows us to dive a bit deeper and learn more about where these people were, where they came from, and where they ended up after passing in the mines. And so using all of this information together, we're able to bring the past into conversation with the future. No longer do those buried stories have to stay underground. Rather, those monuments we see on the right-hand side can have information that supports them just as much as a physical location like the Camelback Truss Bridge on the left-hand side has. As I think about the Deep River State Trail and its desire to improve access for recreational resources due to its biological value, I also think it's important to challenge the note of conservation purely for biology, because there is a rich history here, and history can be an amazing framework. And when partnering with resources like ArcGIS, we're able to visualize the past in a way that would be impossible to do otherwise. With that being said, I'm almost out of time, but I would like to thank you all for joining in today. I look forward to answering any questions either over email or during the chat after the program. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Everyone take care.